everyone, and welcome to the F.A.N Show, and this is another one of our F.A.N Show specials featuring our Outdoors division. I am your host, as always, Richard Demon, and this is still your favorite award-winning show made for the fans by a fan. This is the F.A.N Show. Got a great episode for you as our first ever Outdoors Division special. As we've mentioned before here on the show is now home to 6 divisions. That's right. We've got, of course, the main shield, the one that leads us all into the world of nonsense and football and everything else. That is technically the sports division. Then we have the music and pop culture, wrestling and robotics, and the outdoors division. Now, each one of those is a separate one. So with pop culture, of course, we talk about everything that's happened in the world lately. As far as movies that came out, The Grinch is out now, the new animated one with Benedict Cumberbatch. Bohemian Rhapsody just came out a couple of weeks ago. Went and saw that. Fantastic movie. I highly recommend it. And The Grinch, I'm a fan of The Grinch. My wife is a huge fan of The Grinch. Went and saw that. Again, I highly recommend it. It's a kid's movie, so prepare yourself. Bring the little ones. But there's no shame in going and seeing it all by yourself. I would have. But we tend to go see a lot of kids' movies. I don't know. It's our inner child. Entertain your inner child. You'll live longer. For the music division, we like to talk about concerts coming up, albums that have come out. Maybe a recent concert that we've gone to, and a review a band that's up and coming on the rise. Local band Everyone Loves a Villain has a show on the 17th. We're hoping to collaborate with them. MXPX just had a new album this year. Did a review on that. It was fantastic. Wrestling. We love wrestling here at the F.A.N Show, don't we? Wrestling, of course. 365, 24/7, it seems. There's so much happening. Survivor Series is coming up this Sunday, and it's going to be a good one. It's Raw versus SmackDown, champion versus champion, and then, of course, your classic 5-on-5 Survivor Series elimination matches. Robotics, mechanics, however you want to phrase it, it is where the gears grind and robot fighting time. I mean, mainly it's there for BattleBots. We love BattleBots, but should I ever go to, I don't know, maybe a NASCAR race would fall more under mechanics, robotics, as opposed to sports. But it is a sport. That's why there's only 6 divisions, because the line gets blurred. Some cross over, some mesh well. But nonetheless, we do have a home for everything now. And then finally, last but most certainly not least, the outdoors division. It was one that we were actually just going to have the 5 divisions. And then I got invited to go out on the lake, out on the water with Brian Klum of Klum Dog Outdoors. And then again, Bobby Brown of All Star Bass Fishing hit me up, and he's just like, hey, let's collaborate. Well, I don't really know if it would fall into the sports category, and I don't really have any others. He's like, you saying that you don't have an outdoors division? Ooh. So, better late than never. Got the logo work done. All the logos look fantastic, might I just add. Okay, and if you want to know if you want to get your logo work done through them, hit me up, because I highly recommend them. But the outdoors division, been a very popular one. Did some of our first collaborations with All Star Bass Fishing, Klum Dog Outdoors. And now here we are with our first outdoors division special with, of course, Bobby Brown. I mean, we got to break the ice the right way. So Bobby Brown is going to be on. Jacob Wall, who was on the University of Oregon fishing team, turned pro this year. Going to talk about all that and so much more. So we've got a great special coming up for you. And, of course, you can always find everything under the shield to rule them all. The main stone in the Infinity Gauntlet. And that's the red and gold. The F.A.N Show football logo, the sports one. That's the home base. That is the leader of this. The flagship. So under that, we've got you covered, because we realize that people are a fan of a lot of things, and we've got something for everyone, or as we officially say here on the Fan Show, everyone's a fan of something, and we have something for every fan right here at the Fan Show. So without further ado, any more delay, I'm going to go ahead and bring on Bobby Brown. We're going to have a great talk. Enjoy. All right, ladies and gentlemen, and outdoor enthusiasts, it is one of our Outdoors Division specials as I welcome back the man who was part of the initial launch, the creator of All-Star Bass Fishing, Bobby Brown. Bobby, welcome back. How you doing?
Hey, thanks for having me on the show again. Doing great.
Yeah, you're in Shasta, California, fishing, and I got to tell you, when we first decided to do an Outdoors Division, and you were all about it, and we went out, and I went out with Brian a few weeks prior to that, and we just had some fun fishing. People were just like, man, I got life all wrong if people are getting paid to go out and go fishing, but that's where you're at now, and you're in sunny California doing it.
Yeah, it's definitely been an interesting year, and we've had our ups and downs, but at the same time, it's been a great year of learning, and, who can figure that after a year, I'm down here on a couple weeks at 75 degrees and sunny in November at Shasta, and having a good time just planning 2019 out down here while we're getting some fishing in.
Yeah, speaking of which, it is November, which means that our calendar year is almost done. And so with that comes the home stretch of the holidays and then the close out of one year leading into the start of a new one. So let's take a look back. 2018, what were some of the highs, the lows? Everything really is a learning experience at this point in your endeavor. And so what did you learn the most from 2018, and how was it overall?
It was a great year, and like you said, we learned a ton. I mean, when you start out on something like this, there is no roadmap, and just the bass fishing tournament industry in itself has just really had a great year. There's been a lot of changes and a lot of things that hopefully with the learning that we've had will continue to align. As far as the larger vision, this year, Major League Fishing made some huge announcements and have made a step in the right direction to start a pro tour. So similar to what we were trying to do, getting anglers to make that next step and taking a national attack at it. MLF obviously already has the sponsors. They've already got a TV network involved, and they've actually made a huge impact on bass fishing. But the trickle-down effect for us, I think, is going to be really great for 2019. We ended up in 2018 having 4 different divisions. We have 4 different champions. We learned a lot about what those championships should look like, and we went to I think 15 different locations. So you look at some of the people that participate in this head-to-head bracket style fishing. It's awesome that they get to go out and explore parts of the state or the region that they're in areas that they may not necessarily go otherwise, and compete. We paid out over $11,000 in cash, and
wow.
Product prizes put us at up over $15,000. So not a bad start for a pilot season.
Every time there's a tournament of some kind where you're paying out to first, second, third, and however on, I always am reminded of one of my favorite scenes ever from the movie Happy Gilmore, and this is my mentality about life, really, and that's he's meeting with the PR lady for the first time. God, I forget her name, but anyway. He's just like, she goes, yeah, first place gets blah, 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 blah. He's like, oh, yeah? What was last place get? And she's like, I think, and it's like some really low number. And he's just like, oh, well, hey, either way, I'm leaving with some cash out of this thing. So, I wouldn't mind doing a fishing tournament just to make some cash, and pay cell phones that month or something. I mean, that would be a win for me. I know there's guys that are uber competitive that anything less than, number one is a failure. And that's them. That's fine. They do this for a living. But for me, just to compete, have fun, and walk away with something, even if it is the equivalent of a participation trophy, I'd be okay with that too.
Yeah, well, we'll definitely get you out on the water this next year in a tournament. It'll be fun to be able to get you to experience that because it's addicting, and it's probably one of the problems. I mean, we all end up, at the level that I'm at, we're paying out probably more in entry fees than what we're making. There's very few guys that actually make money at it at the kind of the mid levels, but the BASS is a organization that actually this year did start actually making the prize payouts all the way down through in their elites down to last place. Whereas for us, we're still paying, the top, 4 or 5 anglers in the field. You get some product prizes for other guys that show up and kind of a participation trophy type of thing if you finish low. But, the experience and the enjoyment of the sport is really what most guys are in it for. The extra bonuses every once in a while, cashing a check. But, in that Happy Gilmore, if you get one of those big checks that you can stuff in the back of your truck, you're happy.
I think, I used to play a lot of poker growing up. High school, we met every Friday night. We got pizza. We had beverages, and then, of course, poker. And we would go until the wee hours of the morning. But the idea is that you wanted to make it worth everybody's time, and we didn't have a buy-in set where everybody was getting something. Obviously that would kind of defeat the purpose. So we had that, if you finished in a certain place, I want to say most times it was like if there was 10 guys, if you got fourth or third place, you were getting your money back, so it was no loss to you. And then of course second and first got their incremental payouts. And I think that's a good way to do it, kind of a happy medium. I mean, you don't want to have it where everybody that shows up and buys in can just play loosely because they know that they're going to either get their money back or more than what they came with. But, you got to have a little bit of incentive there. And I think poker has always kind of done it right. Even the World Series of Poker, they have where once you've made it to a certain round and a certain standing as far as the players left, that you're going to walk away with more than what you put into it. But obviously now, the dollar amounts get bigger and bigger, and you're there in that final pool. So I think another sort of mentality and incentive kicks in at that point.
Exactly. You hit it on the head. I think that's a lot of the format for that is really off of the poker circuit. And, it's kind of funny too, because, the cross sports, you kind of pull different things from different places. And I think some of the system that the World Series of Poker has obviously has been very successful is, I'll give you a little bit of a hint, something that we're actually kind of looking at for potentially tying into some bass tournaments. So there may be a little bit of a crossover in there. I'm not going to spill too much of it. Well, I'll save that for another show. But, you've always got to have some sort of a draw, and there's obviously some good prizes involved. I think most of our tournaments, first place is around $2,000 or $3,000, somewhere in that neighborhood, depending on the number of entries and the number of sponsors that have kicked things in. But, you've used some of those guys that win those tournaments are actually able to take the cash from that and pay entry fees into some of the bigger tournaments. We've had several guys that have made that next leap. And I know you're going to have Jacob Wall on a little bit later. He's one of those people that didn't necessarily fish in our tournaments this year, but he's taken some of the entry fees from some of the opens and decided to take the leap to get into the pro circuit, which is a huge step. It's a scary thing, but it's an awesome thing to be able to watch somebody do.
Yeah, and that's a gamble in itself, but I think that's the right way to approach it, being like, so I want to do this tournament, but I'm going to do this one, and obviously if I place in a way that I get enough that I can cover my entry fee into that, then that I think obviously is going to be the best approach, because then you're reinvesting in yourself. And people always ask me how it is that I've kept the show going and grown and expanded it and everything. I said, well, you got to reinvest in yourself. You can't just set it and forget it. That's not how a business model like this works. But 2018, a learning experience for you, and a lot of successes. You and I went out on the water for about a half a day, and we still got to make up that other half, and hopefully that's what 2019 holds. So what's a tease, what's a preview of what you've either been in the works on or that you're excited about that's going to come to fruition starting January in the calendar year?
Oh, I'm going to tell you, I'm really excited, and there's some things that we have been waiting to announce. I'm going to announce one of the first ones right here on your show for the first time, and then we'll make some of the announcements later in the month. But we've been working with quite a few different companies. So like you had said, doing some of this and pushing forward, you can't do it without raw determination and a little bit of help from people now and then. So having the sponsors to be able to jump on board on a regional level, we don't have major national sponsors or anything yet. That's obviously down the road when we are able to expand. But we started looking at how do we expand nationally with the regional sponsors and continue to promote anglers to continue to follow their dreams and make that next leap. So we're partnering with Connect Scale, which is a company that has an online digital scale, Bluetooth capabilities to send all of the information to your phone. So it takes fishing kind of into that next step of technology. And we're going to be able to do bass battles online. So we're actually going to start the membership registration process now through December 15th for some of the January tournaments. We'll have monthly tournaments that people compete from anywhere in the country, and it'll be on a regional level. So they won't be competing against people across different states quite yet. It will be within their own state. But it will be a way for people to be able to compete in bass battles and have some fun at the same time. The prizes right now will probably be on the product side of it, gift cards and that kind of thing. But at the same time, we can start bringing people into the West Coast side of it, which we're going to expand bass battles into Washington and California and set some dates on that public as soon as all of our permits have gone through later in the year. So exciting stuff in the expansion. Also a little bit of nerves, I guess, as far as from the background of it. We had a successful year this year, and you always want to have everything, go somewhat smooth. There's always bumps in the road, but, going across states and going on a national level definitely has its own challenges. But, I think we've got a good crew that's up for the challenges, and we're going to make it work.
Yeah, and I am very excited about what the future holds for you guys, because you had talked to me briefly about the new online competition aspect of it. Now, of course, I do a lot of stuff online. I played online poker back in the day, fantasy football. I've even done some 5K marathons. They're called digital runs, where you sign up and then you're pretty much on the honor system at that point to run however far you need before they send you the little perks package from doing it. But this is obviously something that you're probably going to be paying out to winners. So have you guys worked out relatively all the at least major kinks for how to regulate this and how to make sure that you don't have to rely on the good old honor system to make sure that people are doing what they say they're doing?
Yeah, exactly. And that's one of the amazing things. So the online tournament idea or concept, it isn't a brand new one. There's been some kayak tournaments. There's been some online tournaments that have happened already. And we're lucky because we're coming into it where, like I said, Connect Scale, they have actually done a lot of work to try and figure out how do we get majority of the information sent over to your phone so that it can be validated. So right now you can take a picture of a fish on the scale. You have to have some sort of a visual proof of what size of a fish it is and that you caught it. And there's a few stickers and things here and there that we have to actually send out so it validates that fish was caught during a certain time period. But the scale itself actually captures the weight. It'll capture the location, so we know where exactly that person's at. It has to be a public body of water, so we're not going to let people just fish out of a private pond in their backyard and catch a lunker and say that this is, that this is fair. So there's a lot of things that behind the scenes that scale is able to capture, and there will be a tournament code people put in. So we'll actually get all of that information sent to us, and we can do the validation process each week as the winners are announced. But the new thing for us is, obviously the bracket format. People will be fishing head to head against each other in particular states. So we may be able to set up a local tournament for, anywhere from 16 to 32 anglers, and they may all know each other. It may be a club, it may be, friends, a college, that kind of thing. So the opportunities outweigh the possibilities of people cheating. And I'll tell you right now too, people that cheat in this sport usually get caught at some point in time. People cheat in the larger tournaments. And really, it's something that's it's a worry, it's a concern, but you can't not do it because of those few people. Typically, because of social media the way it is, those things kind of take care of themselves. Those people are usually blackballed and can never fish any type of tournament circuit again. So we hope that we've done enough of the homework and enough of the research to figure out how to do this to where people won't have the opportunity to cheat and still be able to, put together something that's fun for everybody, whether you have a boat or don't. This is another one of those things that people can do from anywhere. You don't have to have a huge budget to be able to fish, and have some fun along the way and win some gift cards and maybe pay for some tackle or entry fees along the way too.
Yeah, it's all the perks of the thing, and I think you guys definitely have a good idea going on there, and you've worked on it long and hard. So we are going to talk more about that, obviously, once we get settled into the new year, and by then I'm sure you'll have a few more announcements to make. But Bobby, it was a absolute privilege and pleasure getting to know you and meeting you this last year, and even getting out on the water with you, which is we've got unfinished business out there. Hopefully we can get to that sooner than later. But really happy that everything's been going well for All-Star and that you're down in Shasta right now enjoying some sunny and warmer weather in the wee month of November.
Absolutely. I appreciate you having me on the show. It's been awesome this year. And I do want to do a quick shout-out to the folks down here. There's been some fires that kind of happened over the last couple of days. So, I want to send some prayers out for those first responders and the family members and stuff that are out there. It's Northern California. We're still kind of trying to figure out exactly what happened and how much size is created. I know you guys have had the fires there. It just seems like it's been one of those really rough years, but
yeah,
just hopefully everybody's taking care of each other in that aspect of it. And I know Veterans Day coming up as well. This year we've also been able to do some things with veterans. So I'll just put a plug out there for any of the listeners, step up, help your veterans out. And, if it's just joining an organization, we're going to do a couple of different things in 2019 that will help support veterans as well and get them on the water. And maybe that'll be an opportunity where we can get you on the water at the same time. It'd be a fun deal if we could tie that all in together.
Oh yeah, I think that I love nothing more. I do love our vets. Of course, my grandfather, my uncle. A lot of family members that were vets. So I understand and I respect what they do. And yes, fires anywhere and everywhere is just something that you could really do without. So Bobby, I thank you so much for taking the time today, and we will be keeping up with you and all the happenings of All-Star Bass Fishing. But hey, enjoy another day at the office, which for you is a day out on the lake.
All right, man. Thank you. I appreciate it. And I'll go catch a few of them for you here.
All right, sounds good. You take care.
All right, thanks, Richard.
All right, once again, that was Bobby Brown with All-Star Bass Fishing. Pleasure to get to know him more and more as we do these outdoor events and collaborations. So up next is Jacob Wall, the college bass fishing team member at the University of Oregon turned professional angler. His comments now on the F.A.N. Show. All right, ladies and gentlemen, we are back. Joining me now, making his debut on the F.A.N. Show for our Outdoors division is a professional fisherman by the name of Jacob Wall. Jacob, welcome to the program. How are you?
I'm doing well, Richard. How are you doing?
Doing great. I do love fishing, I gotta say, and it was sort of a pipe dream of sorts to be growing up thinking, what do you want to do with the rest of your life, or what do you want to do when you grow up? Well, I want to be a professional fisherman, and it seemed almost gimmicky because the guys I had to look up to were Jim Dance, who had like a blooper reel and guys like that. But it has kind of taken the world, at least in that regard, by storm, and here you are finding yourself as a professional fisherman yourself. So what has that life been like for you, and how did it even come about?
Well, the thing with me is I've been pursuing this for pretty much my entire life. Around 12 years old, it was around 11 years old, I started kind of watching some television, like you said, Bill Dance, Roland Martin, a few other gentlemen on TV, and I just gained an interest in the sport and how, active it was. And my, understanding of fishing was a little bit slower paced than that. And I've always been kind of an active person, so that intrigued me. And, I pretty much have had the support of my parents throughout throughout the time. And that's been really helpful. They've given me the opportunity to go and do a number of things that I would not normally be able to do without their help. So they've really been able to kind of get me to the junior level events in the past, and then from there to the high school level events. And then from there, I went to the University of Oregon, and I fished all 4 years on the college team. And then I graduated, it would have been in the spring of 2017. And then I decided this year, I decided I was going to take on the role of fishing the FLW Costa Series on the West Coast. And, my whole goal going into the season was to qualify for the FLW Tour. Little did I know that within the first year I was going to actually reach that goal. The last tournament was on the California Delta in September. I placed 26th out of can't recall the size of the field, but it was pretty large, over 100 and something votes.
Oh, yeah.
From there, I had the opportunity I ended up in 8th place out of all the anglers on the West Coast this year in the FLW Costa Series for the West. And so from there, I was pretty much, posed with the question, do I want to fish the FLW Tour next year, or do I want to continue fishing as a Costa Pro? And I had to kind of consult with my parents, obviously, because they financially are going to be helping me out. They're kind of my main sponsor, I guess, as you could say. If it weren't for them, like I said, there's no way that I'd be able to do this. And so then from there, I basically, started kind of planning, wrapping my head around the whole situation of doing this within 3 months, because like I said, that happened in September, and the first tour level event is in January on Sam Rayburn. So it's a big transition mentally, and I had to kind of grasp all that. But this year I did fish as a pro for the Costa Series, but really this is my first year fishing as a pro.
Well, first year or not, obviously you've got some experience, some level of skill and talent, and also thank you for the correction. I said Jim Nance, it's Bill Dance. I watch a lot of football, so clearly, Jim Nance was probably at the forefront of my mind, but we got it right. Bill Dance, yes, one of my favorites, and we'll get to the FLW and even your time at University of Oregon, but I'm curious as far as growing up. We have a lot of hobbies, and of course we have a lot of stuff that we do with our family, parents, fathers, mothers, brothers, what have you. And I remember growing up doing a lot of fishing and hunting with my dad, and of course we would watch Bill Dance Outdoors. And usually there's certain times, not all at once, but as you're growing up, that your parents will point out things that they think that you're particularly good at. Now, you can be a good hunter, you can be a good fisherman, but usually it's along the lines of you're really good working with your hands and with wood and cutting and sanding and everything. Like, you should think about pursuing a career in carpentry, or you're good with computers and graphics. Maybe graphic design is more up your alley, or you like being the hero, maybe go into a firefighter. But I don't think we ever had the conversation of you're so good at fishing that maybe you should consider that as a career. You mentioned the support of your parents. Was there ever a conversation that you had along those lines, or was it something that you had to tell them, I'm going to pursue being a fisherman professionally? I'm just trying to think of how that goes down at the Thanksgiving dinner table.
Yeah, it's definitely not your standard day job by any means. But it's been something that I've dreamt of doing, like I said, since I was a little kid. And I think for me, it was more a dream than anything, more a goal to reach, more of something that I wanted to pursue that was bigger than myself, bigger than what I thought I may be able to even do. But it was something that I could pursue that would keep me motivated in my daily life and keep me focused and driven. And I think that it's kept me on the track of where I'm at for everything, really. Just the end goal of being able to wake up every morning and say that my job is fishing. In the beginning, I think my parents had their doubts. I think that they thought, this is a this is a tough sport to get into. There's not a lot of guys that do this. It's very expensive, and they weren't sure how to get there. They didn't really have any idea of like the route to take per se. But I kind of just kept taking it step by step, chunk by chunk, doing what I could do. And, like I said, I started actually in casting. It was called Casting Kids, and I did that for 3 years. And from there, I did the casting. It was target casting. And from there, I went to the junior level and then the high school level. And I just kind of kept taking it bite by bite and seeing how I could, kind of continue to pursue it. And then once I graduated college, that's when I kind of had the opportunity to fish professionally and kind of prove myself, per se.
Yeah, fair enough. And, speaking of college, so now we've gotten what it took for you to basically, sounds like you already had the support of your family and your parents, but how that conversation went and your decision behind it and what led you to it. But now, I went to Eastern Washington up here, and I remember that there was a lot of clubs, a lot of different things that you could do if you just needed to help occupy your time, break up the mundane. And we had an outdoors club, and I forget what the specific name of it was, but they did river rafting, kayaking, rock climbing. So it was like all outdoors encompassed in one. But with yours at University of Oregon, it sounds a bit more specific, like just for bass fishing and bass fishing at a college level, which I gotta say, if there's ever a road to get to being a professional fisherman, having it be a part of your college experience is definitely probably one of the better routes to go. Talk a bit about what that experience was like for you at Oregon and how, if you already knew about the fishing going into it, or if it was something that you had to kind of stumble into and how it changed things for you.
Yeah, so actually, I went to the St. Mary's here in Medford, and going to St. Mary's, it's kind of a college preparatory school. So they wanted me to, sign up and try to apply to as many schools as I could that were interesting to me, and, all the places that I thought I might want to go and all that good stuff. But my whole drive was, like I said, fishing. So I, knew the University of Oregon had a pretty good bass fishing team. And I also knew that it was in state, which is, financially a lot easier to deal with than trying to go out of state. And so with that in mind, I kind of just set my sights on University of Oregon. And to be honest with you, it was the only school I applied for. And I got in. And from there, I joined the fishing team my freshman year, knowing that was available. And my parents told me that if I stuck it out and got through school, they would help support me in all my fishing stuff. And it basically was one of the deciding factors of me going to school there. Even though it's a very small team, it was an opportunity to fish at that level. And I also think that it was a good opportunity because it was a small club, so I was able to actually compete at all of the events. Whereas some of these schools throughout the United States, they've gotten so large with their fishing team that they have so many different guys that they can only send a select few guys to the tournaments. So as a freshman angler coming in, you may not get to see a tournament for your first year, maybe 2 years. So going to University of Oregon, I think, was a good opportunity for me to be able to compete all 4 years of school.
Yeah, I think any chance that you have at not only bettering your education but also pursuing something that you're clearly very passionate about is a win-win. And so for University of Oregon to offer that, obviously a tremendous help in what it is that you're after, and to be the only school you applied for and then to get it, that's clearly seeing what you want and shooting your shot. Now I remembered the word I was looking for. Intramural was the word I was looking for as far as the clubs go. At Eastern, we had intramural soccer, rugby, football, outdoors, but those were just, like I said, clubs. It sounds like what you did at University of Oregon was a bit more serious than that. So it was an actual fishing team. And did you what was I guess sort of the time that you got? Like, how did that work out with your school schedule? Because, obviously you got basketball, football at college, and they pretty much just have to show up to class when they can, and then they get to spend all that time on the road traveling and playing games and playing a sport. Is that similar to what it was with fishing with you and the team at Oregon, or was it a little different?
Unfortunately, it was a little different for me. The bass fishing club, like I said, was very small, very tight knit. It was still a club, but throughout the United States, if you look at your southern states, for example, Bethel University out of Tennessee, or are they? Yeah, they're Tennessee. Bethel University in Tennessee. They take this very, very seriously. They have coaches, they have a pretty large team. So I mean, it depends on where you are. Just unfortunately, the school I went to, like I said, wasn't all that built up. I kind of had to do some of the building myself. I was actually the president for a year. I mean, I kind of, took it upon myself to make it more serious than maybe what some people thought it was. Unfortunately for me, going into my classes, I had to, show up every day. I had, that was obviously very important. That was the reason I was there. The primary reason was in education. But with that being said, I still had to travel and I still had to compete at the college level. So, some of my teachers were more understanding than others.
They usually are.
Had a few teachers who were like, what are you talking about? You got to come to class. You can't miss more than 2 days. And so unfortunately, those classes I had to kind of, I'd ask them before the term started. I didn't wait until midway through and then bring it up. I'd go into class knowing, hey, I've got this tournament in, a month and a half or 2 months. And, is that going to be all right? That I'll be gone for 5 or 6 days. And some of them would say yes, some of them would say no. So, I mean, I just kind of had to pick my battles and figure out what classes worked for me. And it ended up, kind of working out all right. But I think I did probably miss some stuff, here and there.
Now, fishing, of course, normally a spring and a summer sport, and being in the Pacific Northwest, especially in a place like University of Oregon, where you're at the mercy of the weather. Does it have a season then for the school year? And was that spring or was that fall, or was it you guys went where the tournaments were?
Yeah, I mean, typically, like you said, it's tough in the colder months of the year, especially for bass. Your colder water species, salmon, steelhead, trout, everything that primarily is pursued here in the Pacific Northwest. That flourishes in that weather. But for bass, they kind of shut down and get a little tougher to catch. But with that being said, I mean, the tournaments kind of would start right around like February, March, and then you'd have like a spring tournament and then you'd have a summer event. So, I mean, it kind of went throughout the whole, year, I guess. The main time of the year we didn't fish was probably, let's say November, probably December through like January. So like 2 or 3 months where we really didn't have much going on. But I mean, with that being said, up here in Oregon, you can still catch bass 12 months out of the year. Our water doesn't freeze.
Mm-hmm.
At least a lot of it doesn't. Some of it does, but a lot of it doesn't. So, I mean, you've still got open water to fish 12 months out of the year. And anytime you've got open water, you can catch bass. I mean, I've caught bass in 37-degree water temperature, and I've caught bass when you shouldn't be catching bass. So,
well, fair enough. It sounds like you're very well versed and very, deserving of being considered a pro, which that's what you became this year. So let's talk about it. 2018, the year of Jacob Wall, professional bass fisherman. Now, of course, an experience like this, I can't imagine it went off without a hitch and it happened without some kind of learning curve. So if you had to sum up your experience as a pro, the ups and downs, what was your biggest takeaway and learning experience, and do you have an overall grade for how year one of your professional sport life as far as fishing goes?
Yeah, I think the biggest thing that I've kind of learned throughout this year fishing professionally is to keep an extremely open mind as an angler and be willing to adjust and change on the fly. You can go out there and, typically I do like 4 days of practice before the events. This year at least. Next year they're only going to allow 3 days of practice per event. That's how it is for the tour. But anyway, after 4 days of practice, you kind of have this idea of what you're going to do, where you're going to fish. You kind of figure out some lures that are working for you. Maybe you don't. Sometimes you have a really tough practice. Sometimes it doesn't go that way. But ideally, that's what you're trying to kind of nail down is, some areas, some baits, and all that. But with that being said, you can go out there in the tournament. And for example, this last event that I was just on Lake Gunnersville, we had a pretty bad thunderstorm and rainstorm that came in the first day of the event. And the first day was actually canceled. And we probably got like an inch of rain. So the lake level adjusted. They started letting water out. And that wasn't necessarily the case in practice at all. So the conditions really changed. So I had to try to adapt. And I think the biggest thing that I've learned this year is just be willing to adapt, be willing to keep an open mind, and just fish the conditions. Don't get stuck in what I did in practice or what I think should be happening. Just kind of keep my eyes open and continuously look for new stuff that could be changing and evolving. And, the bass kind of act on the weather and the water clarity and temperature and all those other, factors. So you kind of just constantly have to be, taking those factors into consideration.
Yeah, I couldn't agree more. I only imagine the amount of research and work. Of course, I talk a lot with Bobby Brown, and he tells me all the time about how much he's putting into the research of a lake and scouting and so forth. And just like any other sport or any other profession, you want to do your research. For you, though, this being your first year pro, clearly you don't sound like an individual that would hit that mark of pro status and be like, I don't need anybody else's help. I don't need anybody else's advice. So as far as not necessarily mentorship, but just the veterans of the sport. What was it like interacting with guys that are very tenured in the sport? And was there anyone specifically who was, more helpful than others as far as getting you fitted into the professional lifestyle of an angler?
Well, when I first came into it, I knew some guys. I've known quite a few different professional anglers. I'd say I kind of have always tried to do this on my own, but with that being said, I take tidbits of things, or information that I hear here and there, and I try to kind of sift through different, I guess, information and take what helps me out of it. I'd say, there's some different people that have helped me get to where I'm at. I wouldn't say really any of them are. A couple of the guys are professional. I guess, recently Justin Lucas, he just won the BASS Angler of the Year. I'm decent buddies with him, and he's given me some advice, and he's kind of pushed me in the right direction as far as like the steps to take to kind of get there to that next level. But, there's also people that have helped support me that, haven't really made it as a professional, but still love to fish. People in the community such as Bobby. He's a very positive, individual who's constantly, supportive. And, I'd have to say all of my, followers on Instagram and Facebook that kind of help support me and keep me motivated. And then, I have a buddy of mine, Reed Conrad, who lives up in Eugene. He's just always been there for me, and he's always been a really great support, and very positive and motivating. And I think for me, that's really what I thrive off of, is having that positive and that motivation behind me to kind of help me get to the next level. As far as the skills and everything go, once you get to this high of level of fishing, everyone can kind of fish. Everybody's good at fishing. The separating factor is those decision making, or the ideas of changing and adapting and being able to make those decisions on the water. That's really what separates a guy from doing well or doing poorly. Being able to adapt, being able to change. Everyone can fish, like I said.
Yeah, the right support system is, I think, an incredibly overlooked aspect of pursuing a dream. Having the right support system, or even at times if you have no support system at all, it's once you've decided on a path and you've gotten into it and now you have that support system, keeping it, maintaining it, and making sure it's the right one for you and what you're doing is I can't even put words to it, because I know from personal experience the support system means everything. So I'm glad that you have found your niche, you've found your calling, so to speak, and that you're pursuing it and down what you believe is the right road. And it certainly sounds like it's been very successful for you. 2018, first year as a pro, and so we're going to see what 2019 has in store for Jacob Wall. And Jacob, if the good people want to follow along with you on all of your fishing exploits and your the rest of your professional career, how can they do that on social media and such?
Yeah, so if you want to follow me on Facebook, it's just Jacob Wall, and I've got the holding up two big old bass on my profile.
Of course.
And then on my Instagram, it's Jacob Big Bass Wall is my follow name on there. And I'd also, like to say thanks to a couple, my really, I only have a couple, or really one company who helps me out at this point. It's, Phoenix Rods is really helpful. They've been, providing me with rods throughout the season, and I couldn't do this without them. So, I mean, they're a huge support of mine, and they've been with me for I'd say 5 or 6 years now.
Yeah, anytime you don't have to worry about your own equipment costs, that's frees you up to be able to pay for basically everything else as far as an expense goes in a pursuit like this. So, Jacob, congratulations on a successful 2018. I look forward to talking with you more next year and the rest of your professional career. And he is Jacob Wall out of the University of Oregon, professional fisherman from right here in the Pacific Northwest. Jacob, thank you so much for your time, and you have a great rest of your day.
Thanks a lot, Richard. You too. Have a great one.
You too. Bye.
All righty. Bye-bye.
All right, once again, Jacob Wall, and a big thank you to him, as well as Bobby Brown of All-Star Bass Fishing. Don't forget to give them a like and a follow on all the major social media, and follow Jacob in his fishing exploits. It doesn't matter the season, because apparently he can do it wherever, whenever, and that's why he's a pro, and I'm not. So big thank you again. We talked plenty about fishing and what 2019 has in store, as well as what we learned from 2018. I think Bobby is on to some really interesting and innovative stuff. So we at the F.A.N Show, especially our outdoors division, are thrilled and looking forward to what the future holds for us as far as some collaborations. Most importantly, just days out on the water. But of course, it's not just fishing that we're going to be covering here. Hunting, hiking, spelunking. I don't know. Is there a lot of spelunking enthusiasts out there? We'll see. It's what the outdoors division is all about. It's about getting out and about, and I love fishing, and I haven't been out nearly as much as I would like to, and I've got a fever, and the only prescription is more fishing. So we will see you guys again real soon here for another outdoors special, I'm sure. Whatever the future may holds, hopefully it's something for everyone. So keep an eye out for more of these specials, as we've got College Gridiron Showcase weekly specials coming up, and then, of course, your regularly scheduled F.A.N Show every Wednesday at 7 Eastern, 4 Pacific. So until next time, ladies and gentlemen, thank you once again, and don't forget to follow us, Instagram, Twitter, Facebook, and listen on iTunes, SoundCloud, Spotify, iHeartRadio, and, of course, Spreaker.com. You guys have a great one. Thank you again from us here at the F.A.N Show.
Do you remember the time that Mark Sanchez ran into his player's butt? That was funny sports.
Thank you for having me on the show, man. I love the F.A.N Show.